Okay, hi everybody. My name is Dave Bloniars. I'm with the U.S. Forest Service Northern Research Station located in Amherst, Massachusetts. And today, in a few seconds, we'll be getting into our webinar, which today is on iTree and education, using it in the classroom with some of our partners at the Forest Service and Project Learning Tree. But before we begin, I just wanted to give you a few logistical components here. We're using the Zoom platform. And one of the best ways to look at Zoom is just look up in your top right corner and you can view it in full screen. And that will allow you to see the PowerPoint slides and other components of the presentation a little bit clearer. You can always hit escape to get out of that. And then down the bottom, if you have questions that you want to ask, because everybody's lines are muted by default, and to ask questions, what you can do is just go down to that little chat dialog box and type your question in there, where Jason Henning from our team will review the questions and ask them at the appropriate time. And at the end of the presentation, if we do have time, we can open up some of your lines, audio, if some of your questions aren't answered that you are expecting. So this week's web workshop partners, we have, as usual, our Davy partners at the Davy Resource Group and Davy Tree, Arbor Aegis and Naomi Zucher helping us to get the word out over in Europe. And I know we have some folks on the line from over that direction today. And then where I work at the Urban Natural Resources Institute of the U.S. Forest Service, and our project partners on iTree down the bottom of your screen. But today's special partner we have is one who's worked with the Forest Service for over a generation, is Project Learning Tree. And we'll let the team introduce themselves to you, but they've brought out so much environmental education and conservation education over the past decades, working in conjunction and partnership with the Forest Service. We're so excited to have them here today. And so, oops, sorry everybody. Our presenters, I'm going to turn this over in a second to Krista Heinlein, and she's with the Davy Institute and the Forest Service. And Krista is going to basically introduce us to each of the speakers. And we have Sherry Soka and James McGirt, who have been working very tirelessly on the program that they're going to introduce today. So as part of the iTree team, I'm very excited to have this project that they've been working on for the last 2 years finally come to fruition. And we're really excited that they can share it with you today. So what I'm going to do is turn this over right now to Krista, and I will then allow Krista to introduce the team. And I hear a little bit of clicking noise. I'm going to try to troubleshoot that along with Robbie.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. This is Krista. Hello, everybody. And again, thank you for being able to join us this afternoon for this month's webinar. And as Dave mentioned, our focus today is on some of the ways in which iTree can be utilized in an educational outreach environment. For the last handful of webinars, we've been trying to focus on some of the real-world opportunities and practices and projects that we know our iTree community has been working on in the interest of informing and inspiring the community at large that joins us for this platform. And today what we wanted to do was specifically take a look at the ways in which iTree is utilized for the ways that it can be utilized to build that bridge with educational opportunities, whether it's from an environmental education center or if it's directly in the schools. We're very fortunate today to have Sherry and James with us from Project Learning Tree. Again, they are our primary partner with the Forest Service for our newly launched curriculum unit opportunities that we're going to talk about today. And it's just a really nice way to think about this as an extension of iTree's capacities, in the sense that one of the ways that we know we can make sure that iTree continues to work for communities and municipalities is to use it as a teaching tool in ways that brings it into the classroom, so that you have students from the get-go and from an early stage learning about the different ways that trees are important to their community. And by folding it into an educational tool like this, we can make it relevant regardless of what that community looks like. Some of those communities might be able to use these activities and projects to work with iTree to look at trees and green spaces directly on their school campuses and their school grounds. But outside of that, it's a way to talk to them about the importance of trees in urban environments or in wetter environments or drier environments, and talk specifically about the different ways that geography can matter when you're considering things like green space. But it also very directly talks to them about the things that iTree does best. And from that perspective, it's learning how they interact with the environment to help with issues such as stormwater management, such as air quality, and of course, carbon dioxide, and all of those other ecosystem services and benefits that we know iTree can talk to us about. So with that, again, I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and I want to give a warm welcome to Sherry, who is going to tell us about how Project Learning Tree got this project in motion and how we can continue to work with it and look for further opportunities to spread the word. Thanks for being here, Sherry.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'm very excited to share Project Learning Tree's newest curriculum, Teaching with iTree. And just trying to get my computer to react here as I try to move my PowerPoint slides down. Here we go.
Looks good.
So everybody can see my screen okay? You see the webinar agenda up there, looking good?
Yes, I think we're great.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Okay, so really the outcome for the webinar today is that we hope that all of you participating in the webinar afterwards will feel comfortable disseminating the Teaching with iTree curriculum to your targeted audiences. And so just a quick overview of our agenda today. We'll have a brief introduction to Project Learning Tree for those of you who aren't familiar with PLT. I'll give an overview of the curriculum. We'll talk about the translations of Teaching with iTree. Then we hope to have a little bit of interaction towards the end where we can sort of, as a group, sort of brainstorm and collaborate ways that you might be able to use this new curriculum with your audiences, and then some time for questions and answers. We've basically done our introduction of presenters here, so I will dive right in to what Project Learning Tree is. So PLT has been around since 1976, and it is an international environmental education program that has three main components, which are high quality instructional materials for grades pre-K to 12. And here on the bottom of the screen, I've highlighted just a few of the curriculum materials that Project Learning Tree has, including its pre-K to 8 environmental education activity guide, which has 96 comprehensive environmental ed activities that are broken down by topic and grade level. In the middle here, I'm showing PLT's Green Schools Investigations, and there's 5 of those, which cover energy, environmental quality, the school site or school grounds, waste and recycling, and a water investigation. And the school site investigation actually incorporates iTree design as part of students analyzing their school site. And just this past year, Project Learning Tree launched online environmental education activities. As you can see here, they're divided up by grade level, K2, 3-5, and 6-8, and by topic. And these online environmental ed activities make it easy for people to access PLT's curriculum materials no matter where they are. And they are accompanied by professional development, which takes me to the next component of PLT, which is professional development for educators, both formal and non-formal educators. And this can be accomplished through in-person trainings, through online trainings, or blended, which incorporates both online and in-person trainings. And then the third component of PLT is its extensive distribution and support network. PLT has a partner in every state in the US, and we're also international. For example, we're in Mexico and Japan. And this great PLT network is really the on-ground distribution of PLT materials and trainings. So it's a great comprehensive EE program. And the vision of PLT is its commitment to creating a future where the next generation truly values the natural world and has the knowledge and skills necessary to make informed decisions and take responsible actions to sustain forests and the broader environment. And PLT really has an emphasis on teaching students how to think, not what to think about complex environmental issues. And all of the activities develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills and emphasize the importance of collecting accurate scientific data and being properly informed before making decisions. So we really try to take a holistic viewpoint towards environmental education and working with teachers and students to help them feel that they have the strong environmental information scientific data. So Project Learning Tree is part of the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, commonly known as SFI. And SFI has 3 pillars, which include the supply chain assurances, conservation leadership, and their 3rd pillar used to be community engagement, but with the addition of PLT to SFI, they changed that 3rd pillar to education and community engagement. And that includes SFI's 34 state implementation committees that are located across North America. And these committees work with local conservation groups, government agencies, forestry and professional associations, landowner groups, and many others in landowner outreach. And the SICs, these state implementing committees, support PLT state programs in many ways. For example, in 2017, the SFI state implementing committees provided more than $87,000 in direct support. So you can learn more about PLT and SFI by going to SFI's website, which is located at the bottom of the screen here, sfiprogram.org. So let's look specifically now at the PLT's newest curriculum, Teaching with iTree. And this curriculum was developed and designed around the iTree tools, specifically iTree Design and iTree Species. And there are 3 activities in the module geared towards middle and high school students that help them discover and analyze the many environmental benefits that trees provide. And the good news is this curriculum, you can download it free from the PLT website. So we're excited with the partnership and support that the Forest Service provided for the development of this curriculum. So the 3 activities are tree benefits and identification, tree value, which uses iTree Design tool, and the land manager role play, which incorporates both iTree Design and iTree Species. So I'm going to go into a little bit more about what's in these 3 activities. The first one, students learn why it's important to care about trees, how we depend on trees in our daily lives, and the value that trees provide to communities and the environment. And then to use the iTree tool, they have to know the tree species. So we teach them how to identify trees in this activity using printed guides, online tree ID guides, and some fun free mobile tree identification apps. And then they're introduced to the iTree Design Calculator. In the next activity, they're learning about the value of trees. So here is where they're actually going out in the field and identifying trees. They're measuring trees. They're doing DBH, or diameter at breast height. They're assessing the health of the trees. And then once they collect that data in the field, they're going back into the classroom and getting online and inputting that into the iTree calculator. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. In this activity, we also encourage students to create an ecosystem services guide for their study site, which might be their school grounds, it might be trees lining their community, it might be a local park. So we want them to share the information that they gather with other students, with school administrators, with PTA, with people in their community. We want them to share that information so that others can learn the importance and the value of trees. And then finally, we hope that they will use the information they've gathered to figure out how can we improve the health of trees on our school grounds? Do we want to plant more trees? So they kind of come up with an action plan and hopefully implement part or all of that plan. Then activity 3 is where they get to apply in a little more detail what they've learned about iTree design. So they're challenged to role play being land managers, and their teacher can assign a specific plot of land, which might be their school grounds, it might be something in their community, it might be something in another state, but they're given a plot of land. They can go on Google Maps and do that aerial view to look at the tree cover. And looking at that, using what they've learned, they try to decide, should more trees be planted in this plot of land to increase the canopy cover? And if so, what species of trees should be planted and where should they be planted? So they're really learning how to actually use the iTree design and the iTree species tool, which helps you determine which species to plant where for which environmental benefits. And then finally, through this activity, they're learning about a variety of land manager and forest-related careers. The activities in Teaching with iTree curriculum have been correlated to the next generation science standards, which for formal educators is very important. I just want to highlight one of them. At the very top one, the Earth and Space Science Standard for middle school says, that standard talks about applying scientific principles to design a method for monitoring and minimizing a human impact on the environment. And the iTree tools are great for this because iTree design, you can look at a specific area, like say the school grounds, and determine where trees should be planted around the school to help lower heating and cooling utility bills. And if trees are planted in certain areas and they lower the utility bills and there's therefore less energy demand, that's going to minimize a human impact on the environment. So the more I started playing around and working with the iTree tools, the more I became fascinated with their application for education. The Teaching with iTree curriculum has many student pages and worksheets that make it easier to use the iTree tools. So for example, this one, you have to be able to identify trees to use iTree design. So this worksheet allows them to go out in the field and look at some of the features and characteristics that are important for tree identification. So it's just a simple worksheet that helps them collect the data and determine the species name. And we encourage them to use printed and online tree ID guides, but also to download some free tree identification apps, such as LeafSnap, the Virginia Tech Tree Identification app, and iNaturalist. I have done this with students at a local high school, and let me tell you, they loved using the apps. They loved getting outside and assessing and analyzing the trees. They loved inputting the data into the iTree tools and actually seeing the dollar value of the trees on their school grounds. In fact, for the local high school that I did it with, Marshall High School, the students measured and assessed every tree on the school grounds and came up with a value of like $3,500 in annual benefits for the trees on the school grounds. So that they can take that to the principal and they can say, this is why we want to care for the trees on our school grounds, and here's where we want to plant more trees. So it was really a great experience working with these high school students. And of course, they love, I can definitely relate to. To make it easy to use iTree design, there are student pages that basically walk them through every screen in iTree design and exactly what they should do where. So we wanted to sort of make it very accessible and super easy for them to use the iTree design website. And here's another worksheet, and these you can just download and print. A teacher can download and print. Somebody working at the nature center or anywhere can download and print all of this information. So here, this tree value worksheet, when you're in the field, you want to be able to collect the data quickly and easily so you can input it when you get back to your computer. So this helps them number the trees. They can put flagging on and number the trees, and then can input the tree species name. They can input their measurements. to use iTree Design, it asks you what condition is the tree is in. Is it an excellent, good, fair, poor? You input that into the calculator, you input the sun exposure, and then finally you get the dollar value of the tree per year, as well as the environmental benefits of the tree. So this worksheet enables them to easily and quickly collect the data in the field. This worksheet supports activity 3, which is the land manager role play. So you can see some of the things that the students might be looking at for a plot of land is, do we want to plant trees to increase shade and cool the landscape, or do we want to plant more trees to intercept stormwater runoff, absorb air pollution, reduce carbon dioxide emissions? They may come up with their own goals for their assigned plot of land. So this activity, I really like it because here's where they start to really do some critical thinking and problem solving and apply everything that they've been learning. Now, to make it super easy to use iTree Design, even easier than the worksheets, PLT developed 2 videos, and these you can link to right from the PLT website. If you click on them, it'll basically go step by step through how to use iTree Design, and then the second video, step by step, it will go through how to calculate diameter of breast height. So these are great videos to access. They're on PLT's YouTube channel, and as I mentioned, you can just get them from going to www.plt.org and clicking on the iTree landing page and finding it. They're also accessible through the iTree Design website. So you may be wondering, how do I download it? Where do I go? So this slide shows you that, again, you go to www.plt.org, click on curriculum, and then teaching with iTree. And here you can download iTree, you can download the entire curriculum, you can download specific pages, the student worksheets. So this is one way to access it, as well as the videos are on this page also. And as I mentioned, you can access the Teaching with iTree curriculum from iTree Design. So you would go to iTree and then click on Resources, drop down to Teaching, and then you would find all of the information right here that you can find. And when you click on this, it also takes you directly to all of the worksheets and all of the videos. So here you would just go to itreetools.org, Resources and Teaching, and you would find it right there. I'm very excited to announce that the Forest Service supported the translation of the iTree Teaching with iTree curriculum into Spanish and Chinese. And the Forest Service Conservation Education and the Forest Service Limited English Proficiency Initiative sponsored these translations. And the Spanish translation is in Latin American Spanish, and the Chinese translation is in Mandarin Chinese. Is anybody on from the Forest Service that wants to speak any more about the translation? Okay, I'll just keep going. But this is great because the translations really enable us to reach out to diverse audiences. So we're very excited about this, this opportunity.
Sherry, AmChat has joined our webinar this afternoon, and I know I'm just going to give him a chance to maybe unmute himself. I know that he had gone ahead and done what he needed to do with his phone, but I'm just going to give him one more chance to speak to those translations.
Sure.
And if that's something that maybe we'll try to pull him in on that later. But I did notice that he had registered and logged in. So what we might do is just try to reach back around with him later. But I think that the idea was that it was really great to be able to have that sort of connection. I know that there are other aspects and other projects within the Forest Service at large where we've definitely started to recognize the importance of these kinds of this sort of accessibility with respect to these translations, which is just, reiterating what you were telling us. So I'm going to let you keep going. But yeah, and I can tell actually that AmChat has let us know that they're also working on a French translation. So stay tuned.
Excellent, excellent. That's great, because Project Learning Tree is in the US, it's in Canada, it's in Mexico, it's in Japan. We're working on partnerships with many other countries. So having these translations not only helps us reach more diverse audiences in the US, but throughout the world. So we're very excited about the Forest Service support of the translations. I'm going to go into our next component where we have an opportunity to do a little bit more chatting and brainstorming. If we have time at the end, I'll go back and just show like a minute of each of the tutorials, the videos that we developed that support teaching with iTree. But let's go on to talking about what audiences can you reach with teaching with iTree. And several of us sort of brainstormed some possible audiences, but we like to get your feedback too, that the unit was written for middle and high school students to be used, by teachers with their students, but it was also written to reach after school groups. So that might be, a school ecology or environmental club. It might be Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. It might be Boys and Girls Clubs. So those after school groups are also great for using teaching with iTree. And of course, there's a very strong non-formal audience component. This is great to use with groups that might be visiting national forests, national parks, local parks, nature centers, environmental centers. It can also be used just by a homeowner who wants to assess the trees on their property. The way that the Teaching with iTree curriculum is written, it just makes it easy to step through how to use the iTree tools. And PLT is currently writing 5 what we call family nature activities that incorporate iTree design and iTree species. So those will shortly be available on PLT's website for free download. And also, I've already been told that many urban planners are using iTree design with when they're working with community groups. So does anybody want to chime in here on what audiences you might use teaching with iTree to reach?
Sherry, I'm going to go ahead and just sort of reassert the fact that, yes, we're going to, we're taking the opportunity to try and engage our attendees today in terms of either as educators or as people and organizations who work with educators, what sorts of contexts those come to you in. And please, feel free to let us know in the chat window if you have suggestions or feedback about either other opportunities that you've recognized or other ways that you've, maybe non-traditional ways that you've thought about how it would be useful to have these sorts of teaching tools available. Sherry, I can also say that one of the specific suggestions we've gotten so far is, that it can be a great resource for language schools, so that schools that are language specific in instances where, you're primarily teaching and learning in Spanish. So I know that, we've given a broad category to the wide variety of school groups that this can reach and impact. But yeah, I thought that was actually, that was a good point, particularly for communities where you have where you have language specific schools and or other learning programs, that this is a nice way to integrate those.
Great, that's a great. I'm in Fairfax County in Virginia, and there are quite a few language immersion public schools, as well as private schools. So that's a great suggestion.
We also had, Sherry, we had a relevant question shortly before we engaged with the question, but specifically with the, concerning the language aspects overall. The question was really how we make iTree Eco available internationally, but obviously what the PLT units are primarily utilizing are iTree design, as well as you were mentioning iTree species. We actually did get some feedback on that, just, in terms of stretching those capacities and the ways that design and MyTree can be developed internationally moving forward. We know that, design is US centric at this point. And, but that's definitely something that's on our radar in terms of development and expanding these, even though, iTree Eco as our core program is the one that we've expanded internationally first.
Okay, great, great component. And I believe in iTree design, just a simple thing like maybe with US, Canada, UK, is that you can easily toggle back and forth between like centimeters and inches. So depending on how you collect the data, you can easily just go back and forth. I'm going to flip down to my next slide, which is, again, we'd like to get your input about who you might collaborate with in your community to use teaching with iTree curriculum as well as iTree design. What the bullets that I've put up here are just things that people have told me over the past few months that the curriculum has been released of who they're working with. So of course the urban and community forestry has been very involved in using iTree design, and now they have a curriculum to support that. Cooperative extension, departments of natural resources, departments of forestry, water departments because they care about stormwater runoff. The PLT state coordinators, as I mentioned, PLT has a coordinator in every state, a program in every state, and you can find out who your state coordinator is simply by going to www.plt.org and drop down to network. I mentioned that SFI, the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, has implementation committees, and you can learn more about SFI and their committees through their website, sfiprogram.org. And of course, there's many organizations that are interested in environmental education and conservation throughout the US and the world, such as Nature Conservancy, zoos, green jobs. So there's many organizations that I think would be interested in learning more about this curriculum and about iTree, the iTree tool. Do we have any input from those on the webinar today, suggestions of who you can collaborate with and audiences that you might reach out to?
Yes, Sherry, actually, the conversation is rolling a little bit in our chat window, which is awesome. So even as you segued into other opportunities for collaborations in communities, so we're talking about audiences. We've had in particular a mention that we feel like this could be highly useful for groups who do youth job preparedness, especially in urban areas, and as a great way to introduce them to new careers. Talking to them about the fact that forestry, or becoming an arborist and pursuing those kinds of pursuits. But anyway, yeah, that this is a very straightforward way to talk to them more broadly about those kinds of career opportunities. And I know that that's something that Dave Bologniars has done a lot of work with. So I don't know if he wants to take a moment to tell us anything about what he's learned on that front, but I'll give him a chance to chime in.
It's great to see all of the folks here, the folks that are coming in from Chicago. We have the Latino farmers and ranchers. We got 4-H clubs. We have environmental justice organizations, scout programs, high school career and technology, LTER schoolyard program, Girl Scouts. We have Campus USA. I probably missed some already in here. And we have folks from Moms Clean Air Force, Green Latinos, all of these, the Bioflix Cities Network and DC. So this is so exciting. And we are actually, I teach at the University of Massachusetts, and we've used iTree for the past, 9 years anyhow in our urban forestry courses. But the neat thing about that is we also are using it now in our environmental justice classes, our sustainability classes, and a variety of other platforms. So what we're going to also do is at the end, we're going to post the chat in here. And we also have the ability to add comments and chat to the webpage that I'll give you at the end. So we could carry this forward a little bit more. And then between Krista, myself, and Al Zelaya, I think we'd probably be reaching out to a lot of the folks that are on the call today, along with the PLT partners, to see what we can do and help you moving forward, not only on this level here, but at the higher level with some of the college, university, green skills training programs that are out there.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, and some of the other input that we've been getting, Sherry, includes the fact that even when you're doing outreach to the public at large and even trying to connect with local decision makers, that they may have very little understanding of the benefits that trees are providing. So all of these sorts of tools, to have them in your pocket, are really helpful. We've gotten feedback from a gentleman who teaches urban forestry classes, both graduate and undergraduate, using iTree Canopy and utilizing these sorts of tools in a lab setting. So even if it's something where they can take a unit of curriculum like this and use it as a jumping off point, that they're chiming in that these tools can be really well utilized in these classroom settings. The Biophilic Cities Network might also be interested. Helen Santiago Fink has let us know, and she's speaking as someone who would like to explore this tool with Biophilic DC. Some of the other organizational and community level suggestions that have been made include Moms Clean Air Force. I like that one. I hadn't heard of that one before. And several Latino organizations, Americas for Conservation, Corazon Latino, Green Latinos, Latino Outdoors, and as well as friends groups. I know that we've had, when we talk about municipalities and we talk about parks, we know that a lot of times cities in particular are doing everything that they can, but the more that we can disseminate information to the other and the more non-traditional caretakers of those green spaces, so those Parks Friends organizations, those are the sorts of things that have come to mind to some of our attendees.
And last month's presentation was exactly on that, Krista, so you can go back to the archive of that one in Springfield, Massachusetts. It's also great, I'm just looking on here, we had some other folks that were talking about working with the environmental, I think this is Tamberly from the Environmental Defense Fund and the City Project, which are great. And then Dave Nowak, I see you're on here. Was he the one we were trying to get to ask a question about the international, the languaging, translations?
Yes, Dave was actually responding to that specifically in terms of branching out the international development.
All right,
on these tools.
Dave, should I allow Dave, you can talk if you want and interrupt at this during a little break time here if you want.
Can you hear me, Dave?
Yep, perfect.
Oh, good. It's a new computer.
Nice.
Yeah, so we are, design works now in the US and Canada. I believe we're working on a version for the UK and trying to light it up for other places too, but it takes additional data and processing at our end. But pretty much in order for this, because this project learning tree stuff is awesome. So we want to get, in order for this thing is being translated, we have to convert design, but we can't convert the design programs to other countries until we get ECO established. So ECO runs right now, US, Canada, Australia, and the UK. Mexico was just released. Europe is in a beta version, which will be finalized later this year. And we're doing a version for Colombia. And we're also working in New Zealand and South Korea. So there's potential for all those areas that don't have design be able to do this in the future years once we convert the program so the design will function. So right now, just again, design only works in the US and Canada, but has the potential for other places, but just takes some resources and time.
All right, Dave, thank you very much. I know the folks like hearing from you and straight from the horse's mouth, so thanks for joining us.
What'd you call me?
I said, it's always great to hear from you, Dave. No way. Sherry, I think you're going to pick up where we left off.
Sure. Yes. So another group to collaborate with would be Arbor Day Foundation. Arbor Day Foundation, of course, supports tree planting, and they have a strong educational component. And Arbor Day Foundation is mentioned in the iTree, Teaching with iTree curriculum, in that it's a great resource for local communities. It's great. They have a great online tree identification app. They also have a nice platform that helps a community decide which trees to plant where. That's very easy to use. So, you know, throughout the curriculum, we mentioned Arbor Day Foundation and all the great resources and tools there. So what I love about this Teaching with iTree curriculum is that it really brings together a lot of organizations and, you know, of course, the Forest Service, nonprofit organizations that are all working together to support education about green careers, about the value of trees, about forestry, with really hands-on, exciting tools. So I'm very excited to see this getting into the hands of teachers, students, after-school groups, local community groups, nonprofits. It's very exciting to see it starting to get used. And you know, that's why with this webinar, we wanted to share the information about Teaching with iTree curriculum, about iTree tools, and also just have this opportunity to sort of brainstorm and collaborate with all of you who've taken time to participate in the webinar today. So I've written down lots of great ideas that I've gotten from just the chat room, and you know, you can continue to communicate with all of us even after the webinar. So in a minute, I'll put up some contact information. Anything else that's come through on the chat that we want to
Hey, Sherry, this is
discuss?
Jason. I've got a couple chat questions that are pretty much directly for you. So we'll go take those one at a time. So one user asked that many programs that I deal with have limited time for programming. What is a minimum time that you would suggest for teaching the basics of the potential of iTree? I don't know if you have any kind of experience with how much time these things take or how that usually
Yeah. I think a teacher or a person can make this as short or draw it out to be as long as you want. I was in a high school biology class this spring, and I was able to introduce iTree design, teach them how to identify trees using leaf snap, take them outside, and do this all in a 90-minute class. And they were able to input the data. So in a 90-minute class, you can definitely introduce iTree design using the PLT curriculum. I also did a more extensive use with Teaching with iTree, and I incorporated the PLT's Green School investigation, the school site investigation, with the local high school, and that's when we went into more depth, and we spent probably a total of maybe 4 hours where this teams of students went out and measured the trees, identified the trees, measured the trees, and then inputted the data, and that's how we got that, you know, where they analyzed all the trees on school grounds. And that, you know, that obviously takes a much longer time to do. But if you do everything in the unit, you know, you can just kind of pick and choose. It takes, you know, 10 class periods, 10 90-minute class periods in a high school, or you can, like I said, do it in one. So it's a matter of picking and choosing what works best for your particular audience.
Sure. That's great. I think that makes sense that you can kind of tailor it the way you want it, and it sounds like that's easy to do with the program. Another question we had, is there any media info that can be sent to potential users that might have never heard of PLT? The program is great, but it is a lot to take in for anyone unfamiliar with it.
You mean like maybe like a one-page flyer about PLT or about the new curriculum? Is that what they're asking? If so, you know, directing to plt.org is good. And that landing page that I showed you, when you go to plt.org and then, you know, you search like iTree, or you go to the curriculum and drop down to the iTree cover there you can download a flyer. You can just print and download a free flyer there that explains a little bit more about T and about the curriculum and iTree design tools. So that is available for free download. And if anybody wants, I'm happy to share that information with them directly.
Great. Yeah, I'll also just put in a plug in there that we do have some videos on the iTree website that might help with some of that if people are really unfamiliar.
Okay.
And hopefully that answered Richie's question. But yeah, no, those one-pagers are great too. One other question, I guess, before maybe I can turn it back. Though the questions keep coming in, so people are really excited to hear this stuff. Is there no actual app for iTree? Does it rely solely on LeafSnap and other tree ID apps? I've had some issues with LeafSnap not working well, and iNaturalist requires you to be online, right? With live internet connection. So I guess the question is, how exactly does the iTree design site work? And I can take that one, or if you've had experience with how that normally goes in the classroom, that'd be great too.
Sure, why don't you go ahead with answering the question, and then I can support anything else.
Sure. So the program that's specifically used in Project Learning Tree, or the application, is iTree Design, and it is web-based, so you do have to be connected to the internet to use it. And typically, the way that people use it is you can use it on a phone if you've got a data connection, but that can be a little clunky, so they might collect a little bit of data on paper, especially if you're talking about students, and then go back to the classroom and enter it on a desktop. You don't need LeafSnap or any other tools unless you need help identifying the trees. So that's kind of the nuts and bolt answer of how iTree Design works, but you might have a better sense, Sherry, of how it actually works in the classroom.
Yeah, I found that Go ahead, David.
Oh, no, I just maybe after we could mention MyTree, which is sort of a handheld app or a handheld link-in that will allow you to do design on a simplified basis pretty quickly. But go right ahead, Sherry.
Yeah, so you can just Google MyTree to find, like David said, the simplified version of sort of the tree benefits calculator. I've used that with younger students, and they have loved that because you can get a printout that almost looks like a nutrition label, and it shows you, you know, like the nutrition, the value of the tree that looks like a printout, and so younger students love that. So that's definitely something worth checking out. And that's why with the Teaching with iTree curriculum, I created the student worksheets, because it's much easier to go out and sort of do the pencil paper collection of the data and then come back inside into the classroom or wherever you are where you have good Wi-Fi connection, and then connect to the iTree tools and enter the data. So I just found that was simplified. We did try to do it outside on picnic tables around the in the high school courtyard, but it's difficult unless you bring out multiple laptops, because if you're collecting information on, say, 45 trees on the school grounds, you might want to have, you know, students, you know, kind of taking turns entering that data and giving everybody a chance to participate and see how the tool works. So I found collecting it on paper and pencil and coming back in worked the best.
Great. I think that was all the questions I can keep up with at the moment.
Okay.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, and one of the things that we're seeing is a flow of commentary based on suggestions for organizations and communities. But yeah, Jason is looking for actual questions, so that was helpful to distinguish between some of the more logistical aspects of addressing a curriculum unit type piece and how, you know, how to literally work through that. But Sherry, I will go ahead and mention just briefly that some of the more, again, non-traditional items that we've seen, we've had one of the attendees mention specifically environmental justice organizations as those who might find this a useful tool. And one that I thought was really compelling was the mention of the long-term ecological research schoolyard programs. That's actually an NSF funded program that brings different several different types of Earth's ecosystem concepts to classrooms. But that one was a good reminder of again, the wide variety of educational opportunities that this can segue nicely with.
Excellent, excellent. There's, I think that we're really seeing the broad application, the broad appeal for iTree with so many different audiences and so many different uses. So I appreciate everybody providing their suggestions and ideas.
This is Dave Boniars. We have another person, James McGirt, who's one of the key players behind the scenes and really been involved in the putting this together at the project learning tree level and been working on this for as long as Sherry and the rest of the team. I'm trying to find James here, and I could unmute him. James, if you want to say a couple words, but he might not even still be on here. Let's just see. I don't see him, so he might have had to tail out because I know he's a busy guy. Oh no, here it is. So James, you should be able to just speak right now if you want to say anything.
Hello, Dave, can you hear me?
Yep, perfect. Yeah, James, just introduce yourself because you're instrumental in making sure this happened, along with Sherry and the rest of the team, plus all the folks at Davey Tree that worked on it, along with the Forest Service folks. Dave Nowak, he was instrumental in putting this whole thing together with our conservation ed folks in Washington, and then working with them for the last several years. And I've been on the project team from the beginning, so it's been a great adventure to see this. And I know, Dave, you must be pleased, but I am. But James, I just want to say a few words and take a little bit of a bow for the work that you did.
Well, Dave, thank you for that acknowledgement and that very kind introduction. Once again, my name is James McGirt, and I serve as Manager of Service Learning and Community Engagement for Project Learning Tree and the Sustainable Forestry Initiative. iTree has been a big part of our school site investigation, and I think with the new bells and whistles that Sherry has added through the iTree information, that we can catapult the schools and iTree to a new tier. Can you guys hear me? Because I hear a reverb from my end.
No, we got you, James. Very nice. So I just wanted to take that little bow. And the other person on here too, James, from the Forest Service, Amchat Edwards. I think I'm going to have to mute most of the lines, but Amchat, if you want to, Amchat has been instrumental with the conservation education team down in Washington with the Forest Service. So Amchat, if you're on, I'll just have you say a word. And if he's not, I'll just mute everybody.
Hi, Dave. Can you hear me?
I can't hear anybody right now. Okay, Krista, can you hear me?
Yes.
Amchat?
You're okay, Dave.
Okay. All right, James, we're getting a little reverb there, so we're gonna hang up and throw you out of here, but we still appreciate all your hard work on this. And then, so Sherry and Krista, I think you guys can start to wrap it up if you want, or whatever else you want to cover from the questions that's still coming in, Robbie or Jason.
No, I think that's fine, Dave, and thank you. I know that Amchat did check in a little bit earlier and his phone connection was not successful. So I think he's still listening to our conversation and sharing, like taking in some of the feedback. Again, we want to go ahead and thank his arm of the Forest Service for the work that's been done to go ahead and pull together workable translations for the materials themselves so that, again, they can be taken into a variety of different classrooms. I do want to thank Sherry again so much for all the information and for providing it in a really concise way that users and non-users of iTree alike can grab onto and sort of take a further look as they feel it would be applicable. We have clearly had a large number of attendees today respond to the ways in which they've either already used iTree for their particular educational outreach work, as well as forwarding suggestions for other types of partnerships and other types of collaborations where these types of resources and tools are really great assets. So I wanted to thank you again. I do want to give you just a minute to let us know if there's anything else in parting that you wanted to share with us. And I will also ask that if Jason has any other final remaining questions to let us know. I think we're in the clear. But Sherry, again, thank you so much, and let us know if you've got any last thoughts that you want to share with us.
Yeah, I would just love to stay in touch with people and continue to hear about how you're using iTree, the iTree online tools, and how you're using the PLT Teaching with iTree curriculum. I've put up a slide here with contact information for all of us who have been collaborating on iTree and on the curriculum. If you want to get your smartphone out and take a screenshot, take a photo of our contacts, you'll have them there. And of course, this webinar is being recorded. So I just want to thank everybody for their input today, their participation. And David, do you want to speak just about how they'll be able to get the link for the recorded webinar?
Yeah, Sherry, if you can go up to the top of your screen at the bottom and say stop sharing screen or ends sharing. There you go.
Yep.
And then I'll just pull up my PowerPoint here that I think I can get this set. Hang on. And what I can do is right here. Okay, so if you want to, well, just go right here. So if you want to look for the replay and all of the resources, including everybody's name and contacts that Sherry just gave us, I'll post. There actually, most of them are posted there already, along with the web links. I'll also post the content of the chat session will go up there. There'll be a discussion forum that you might be able to add, and I think this will be a great webcast session to add that discussion forum, because we had such good involved folks today. So I'll put that, but you just go to unread.org/webcast/iTree workshops. And if you simply get to the unread.org, that's the Urban Natural Resources Institute.org, on your left side, you'll also see a menu bar that says webcasts, and you can just click on that, and it'll have the archives from this and our other sessions. And for the folks that need ISA or SAF certification credits, the quiz is already up there. It's www.unread.org/CEU. So those quiz is set up already. You can go on and take a quiz and get your continuing ed credits for today. Again, here's our session. And then our next web session, the date and time is to be determined based on a conversation we're going to have with the iTree team, depending on whether folks are interested, because sometimes in July and August we don't run these, but we may, and we're trying to do something for July. So Krista, myself, and Jason, and Robbie, and Al, along with the rest of the team, will get together over the next day or early next week and come up and get this date out to you, whether we're not having one or we are. But I'm also going to send out an email following this tomorrow that will tell you the direct link to go to our resource page, as well as, and on that resource page will be the video sessions for you to be able to view, download, take, share, and put on, embed in your own website. So I just think it's a terrific opportunity for folks to continue their sharing. And a lot of educators today love the ability to share things. So here's that web address. And then the last thing I want to say is we've been very lucky over the last several webcasts to have really engaged audiences that have been asking a lot of questions and some great speakers. So Sherry, the terrific job you did today, engaging in the discussion, and then Robbie and Jason and Krista for spurring that conversation forward, and then Dave and James and Amchat for pitching in. So a great team effort today. We look forward to seeing you at our next website, next webcast. But get out there and look at the iTree PLT components. They've done a really tremendous job, and we're very proud of the work that the partnership between PLT, the Forest Service, and all of our partners have really put together here for you. So thanks, everybody, and I guess we'll see you at our next webcast.
Thanks for joining us
Thanks,
today, everybody.
everyone.
Okay, bye, everybody.